Okay, so no problem. Anyone can join. I will not be showing my screen today just because of a technical difficulty, and I don't want to take the time to figure it out. Um, but if you have your screen and you want to go to Sutta Central or something to follow along, I'm using my own translations today, but they're really close to Bhante Sujatos because these are pretty straightforward suttas. So let's begin together with homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Budang Damang Sangam Namasami. Ah, last week, I think, gosh, it feels like such a long week. This was just a week ago that Ayasubhajana went into retreat, but the day before, we were talking about the dependencies that led up to freedom, to led up to release, that led up, through knowledge and all the way to full happiness. I'm just going to call it that way, since the topic for today is happiness. Um, One of the things I wanted to note, and it'll be apparent as we go through the sutta, is that what Ayasuvajana was talking about, there being these factors that integrate with faith, the mindfulness, the right of our effort, the way that we approach it, that's really important as we look at the topic of happiness and we weigh out what is it that makes us happy in the sense of this temporary worldly, breakfast tasted so good, to the kind of happiness that is this really relaxed, settled, beautiful mind state that also imbues the body regardless of the state of the body. There's this still a sense of ease that's present when we're in this kind of happiness that is directed from and toward liberation. So, like I said, just I'm not sure exactly. I'm not sure it was the having the other Basadi on. I don't have the share screen. Just the way the cookie crumbles today. But I think we can do just fine. So the
Uh,
sutta that we're gonna start with.
Excuse me.
Oh yes, I.
I tried YouTube and I don't see you on YouTube.
Oh dear, thank you for telling me that. Oh, well, it says YouTube. The content of this meeting is being sent to YouTube. Um, Maybe that's because of there's it happened twice. I'll check it as well. Thank you. Um, YouTube Pasani. Okay, there is a second live stream that has started. So um, we'll just have Mudita clip out the one that only lasted for 1 minute and 3 seconds. So it is live on YouTube, but thank you for pointing it out. Okay. Um, so I would, since I'm not sharing my screen, that's probably actually great because these are words I think all of you have probably heard. Dukkha, Sukha. And I would love to hear if anyone has a definition of dukkha that lands for them, like that's the way I see or feel or experience dukkha, and it might be multiple ways. Anyone brave to say their word for dukkha? Oh, we've got stress is good. Yes, stress is a good word for dukkha. Dissatisfaction, suffering, that's the one we hear a lot. Unsatisfactory, discomfort, ouch. And I saw in, I'm assuming it's probably Bhante Sujato's, it's a bummer. So dukkha is a bummer. And then sukha. Sukha, that's another one that has Ajahn Kovlo, oh, that's from last time, yeah. Okay, so sukha, I'm looking at things also like comfortable now, but happiness is a very common one. It's also sweet. Scott, did you have a
I go with ease.
ease? I like ease as well. Content,
Mhm.
fine, and then so these are different ways that we can have that sense of what is sukha. And the way that it rotates in the whole, the ka is actually that open, it's the opening. And so it's the space. And in Sanskrit, one of the scholars was saying that it's like an easeful space, or it would be a bad or unpleasant, ill-fitting space. So as we look at the sutta, you can kind of think about what is the space I'm in and the space of me as I look at the words sukha and dukkha. So this is the preliminary Pali part before we jump into the sutta, which I probably should have told you before so that you could pull it up. But if you get the newsletter, we're looking at Anguttara Nikaya 1065 and 1066. And I might have a couple of auxiliary ones as well. So if you wish, you can pull that up on your screen. And this is a translation that I did myself. It's a pretty simple sutta, but you'll see it matches Bhante Sujato pretty closely. And it made me delve a little bit deeper by doing the translation myself. So just a suggestion that people could start playing with translating if you're not already doing it. Okay. One thing I am going to have to flip a little bit back and forth on my screen unless I can, maybe, hold on a second. I think maybe I can drag. Can I drag? No, I can't drag. All right. Well, that's a drag.
Excuse me. Can you just say the
Sutta?
verse? Yeah, the sutta again, please.
Yes. Anguttara Nikaya 10.65. So if you're in Sutta Central, just after the slash, you can do AN 10.65. Okay, great. All right, so I will begin. We're definitely in tech difficulty land today. Ayya Vijana accidentally logged me out instead of herself. So I think she's going to go back into seclusion and just try and catch happiness in her own way. I'm going to check content is being sent to YouTube. It looks like it's still landing on YouTube. This is actually like perfect. We get a real life scenario of what are you experiencing, sukha or dukkha, in the midst of this. And we'll get to what is the quality that directs us one way or the other. Because I'll tell you, it's not about what's going on around us. So you may have figured that out though. Okay, so I'm going to take a moment here just to make sure it's still, this is why we need a tech team, that it's still shining out on YouTube. Yep, looks like it's still going. All right. And the benefit of this, Suvajana just handed me her laptop, so I'm two laptopped. Is the benefit of this is I can actually still see you and read off of the second laptop. Okay, so I am assuming I fell out somewhere in the midst of reading a sutta. Is that correct? Nope. Okay, where did I drop out? At the beginning. Okay, so at the beginning of the sutta. I'll start the sutta over. Thank you for that direction. Okay, didn't hear anything. Good opportunity for meditation. So, back at the beginning. One time, Venerable Sariputta was staying in Magadha, near the little village of Nalanka. Then the wanderer Samandakani approached Venerable Sariputta, and having drawn near, exchanged greetings with Venerable Sariputta. After concluding enjoyable and charming conversation, the wanderer Samandakani sat down to one side and asked, Venerable Sariputta, what is sukha? What is dukkha? And I purposely didn't translate them in this one, just so we could work with those variety of meanings on this. Let me check. Am I speaking? I think I better. I'm not sure who it's showing on. Okay. All right. We'll see if that works. Okay. So here we are with the wanderer asking Venerable Sariputta, what is sukha? What is dukkha? And this is Venerable Sariputta's reply. Rebirth, indeed, Venerable, is dukkha. No rebirth is sukha. Okay, so this word that's translated here is rebirth, and I checked 3 different translations, and they all used rebirth. When I looked at the Pali, abhinibhati, that word in the dictionary says birth, becoming, production. So I was kind of scratching my head, and my first translation was to just use birth because it still makes sense. You know, you're born, you got this body, there's going to be some dukkha. And so then I had to dig deeper. Well, why are they using the term rebirth rather than birth? And I looked at the root, the vat, and that's to be or proceed. So it's not so much about getting into the body, but it's the production that happens, you know. And then when I looked further, the abhi, that's kind of a towards. It can also mean high, but in this one, it's more like a towards or around. And then the knee is away, out of. So you can see right there, we've got, you know, towards and away, towards and away. Right there in that kind of somatic thing, you've got the sense of becoming and rebecoming, the rebirth. And when I looked at the root family and the other words that are associated with this, it's this production, bringing into existence. And so I think it does land better to really put it in that context of this rebecoming, not just birth once. So that's why I also picked rebirth, because I'm also not a scholar in this, and I do put some trust in those. But then I do the research to see, does that bear up? How does that land? So rebirth. Rebirth indeed, Venerable, is dukkha. No rebirth is sukha. And then he continues, when there is rebirth, dukkha is to be expected. And then a bunch of things to explaining what is the experience of this dukkha. Well, it's cold, heat, hunger, thirst, defecation, urination, the touch of flames, the blow of sticks, the stab of weapons, relatives and friends gathering and irritating you. So kind of gives that range of being within a body, being within a world structure, things that the body has to do for its survival, and then the interactions we have with other people. And so when there is rebirth, dukkha is to be expected. This is what it means to be in a body, in a world system. He says then, when there is no rebirth, sukha is to be expected. No cold, heat, no hunger, thirst, no defecation, urination, no touch of flames, blows of sticks, stabs of weapons, no relatives and friends gathering and irritating you. And I would say, even if you have a joyful family gathering, and you really say, oh, that was just, we had the best conversations, we had a good meal together, I feel really close with these people, there is still this rub that's happening, and you go back and you're uplifted from having had that time, but you're also worn out. So, noticing that even in the sweet experiences that we can have in life, there's a rub that often is there. And I wouldn't suggest focusing on the rub when you're having a conversation with your mom or your brother or whatever, but having a real sense of, even though I'm really care about this person, having interactions has some friction in it until we really see reality clearly. And once we do see reality clearly, we kind of get this sense of the pleasures of these experiences are not as high as the pleasure of not repeatedly doing this. When I was raised most of my life as a child in the Catholic faith. I think this is true from the Christian that I started in. I mean, I know Catholic's Christian, but there's often a different way of relating. The priest asked us, I think we were about 7th grade, well, do you have any questions in this? And I had a question about, where did my dad go when he died? That kind of thing. And it came around to, oh, well, what's going to happen to me when I die? And, this answer about eternal heaven. And I looked at him and I said, God's going to have to change my personality, because there's nothing I want to do forever. So maybe some Buddhist influence was already in my makeup at that time. I don't know what rebirths I may have, but that sense of even the most pleasant, harps on clouds and, lovely, sweet music and all of that, forever, that's a dukkha. So there's one way we can look at this teaching. Also in the Digha Nikaya, in the last, where the Buddha's making his last teaching before he dies, he talks about that before we saw the Four Noble Truths, and before we put down the burden, there was this future lives to come. And when we cut the suffering off, there will be no more future lives. And this is where Bhante Sujato's translation is, the leash to existence is eradicated. So we really need to look at our practice, though, where that is a balm and a relief, not a suicidal cutting off, because the energy is so different. This is a sutta about happiness. So this is where the deeper parts of our exploration really come to be. So any questions before I continue on to the next sutta? Because this is kind of a shocking statement, especially in our world. Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Ayananika. So I noticed that in a lot of suttas and in general, a lot of things are described in the negative. So in this, sukha is described in the negative as being devoid or like empty of these things that cause suffering.
Yeah.
And I just, I find that interesting and worth noting.
Yeah, it is worth noting. And if I look at the valence, the direction, pre-dereliction of my mind, and scientifically, that what do we catch? What is the thing we catch and we catch on? It's the danger, it's the warning, it's the, what do I need to fix? For most of the population, most of animal and humankind, there's this kind of heading toward. And so I think it also helps catch our attention that, oh, when I saw the Four Noble Truths, it was, oh, he's talking about what I'm actually experiencing, suffering. And that was my hook, was like, yeah, my life has kind of sucked. Now what? And then to read, like, there's a cause and there is an out, and then to learn about that out being really happy. It was a good way for me to be able to enter through the dukkha door. A lot of us enter through the dukkha door. So I also think that may have just been a pattern of teaching at that time. In modern psychology, we kind of jump in. I visited some churches where I've thought, it's beautiful, but you jumped so far into the beautiful end that I don't see the path there, and I don't really trust it. Whereas if I say, hey, there's suffering, people can go, yeah, there is. And then we can get to, well, there's also sukha. There really is this relief, ease. I do like ease. Other comments on this first sutta or questions? Got a squirrel at the door, but not asking a question. So we will continue then. So the next sutta is the one called Second on Happiness. And if you're looking at Sutta Central, you can go down to the bottom and the right and just click to the next one, or you can put in AN 10.66. And it's the same cast of characters here. One time, Venerable Sariputta was staying in Magadha near the little village of Nalanka. Then the wanderer Samandakani approached Venerable Sariputta, and having drawn near, exchanged greetings with Venerable Sariputta, and after concluding enjoyable and charming conversation, the wanderer Samandakani sat down to one side and asked, Venerable Sariputta, in the Dhamma Vinaya, what is sukha, what is dukkha? Now, I can totally imagine that this really was two separate occasions. Historically, we don't know. We don't know if this was a continuation of the conversation, but I can imagine, because I've done this with my teachers, got a question, and then I go away and I practice and ponder, and then like there's a nuance. It's like, okay, so there's this Dhamma, these trainings, this Vinaya, the way of holding it, the discipline is one way to put that. And within that, is Dukkha Sukha any different? How would you describe it? How do I take the next step in understanding? So that's how I kind of in my imagination imagine these two suttas occurring. Venerable Sariputta replied, in this Dhamma Vinaya, discontent, venerable, is suffering, dukkha. Delight is happiness, sukha. So I've put in this sutta, discontent as a translation of the dukkha, and happiness as sukha. Other ones would fit, but I found practicing with this sense of, is there contentment? And is that contentment of the quality of happiness, that it was really helpful for me working with this sutta as a practice. The word here for discontent or dissatisfaction is anabhirati, and the root of that is ram, and that's where you have delight, or it's pleasing. And so really, perhaps you've experienced this. When I was connecting to the Digha Nikaya and reading, the last words of the Buddha, his travels, and what rose up in me was this delight, was this real sense of appreciation. And I've read that sutta a lot of times, and I've read it just in a scholarly way or a confused way, or just as the practice matures, there's also like this connection with the words, because I did not early on understand how reading a sutta was going to uplift the heart. I should have remembered back to the first time I read the Four Noble Truths, and that immense sense of, there's a way that I could practice. And this is, before robes and all of that. This was just at the tail end of trying to figure out, how do I get out of my third depression, and how do I, get back to some sort of sense of normalcy, and do I want the same normal? And so trying to investigate further. And in that process, I came across the Four Noble Truths actually in a yoga class, and went to the teacher and said, what's this? And they said, well, it is in the Yoga Sutra, but it's more Buddhist. I'm like, oh, okay. And it took me several times where that spark of, whoa, that's delightful. And that delight then spurred me to do further investigation. So you may have experienced this kind of thing as well, where there's the point where the suttas go from, kind of dull and scholarly and structured to, wow, this really is amazing. And that's what this is touching on here to me. So a bit of a side there, but relevant. So he continues, in being discontent, venerable, suffering is to be expected. In being discontent, suffering is to be expected. And where is it to be expected? While walking, you don't arrive at happiness or comfort. While standing, while sitting, while lying down, while in town, while in the forest, while at the root of a tree, which means in our meditation, while in an empty hut, while in the open air, while within the midst of monastics, you don't arrive at happiness or comfort. And so what is driving this? It's discontent. I've definitely experienced that. So, and then we do get to go to the other side in being delighted. So I brought in that aspect of delight, but you could just say content if you wish. Venerable, happiness is to be expected. And you can see where this is the well-being cascade we did last time. If you saw that video or were here, you can see how this factors into that too, the conditions for arriving at happiness and then being able to go into the samadhi and the stilling, the steadying, the settling. So here the word is abhirati, and that they're translating it as pleasure, delight, happiness in the digital Pali dictionary. And where is this happiness to be expected? While walking, you arrive at happiness or comfort. While standing, while sitting, while lying down, while in the forest, while at a root of a tree, while in an empty hut in the open air, while within the midst of monastics, you arrive at happiness or comfort. In being delighted, Venerable, happiness is to be expected. So, show of physical or virtual hands, have you seen that when that kind of wholesome delight or sense of yes, I see it, comes up? Is there also a happiness that's there? Has that been an experience? Okay, yeah, okay, some hands. If it hasn't yet been an experience, look, see, just feel it out, sense it. Is there the quality of ease and happiness when a wholesome delight arises? And if wholesome delight is not yet arising, then that's where we go back to what Ayasuvajana was talking about last week with the mindfulness, the discernment, the investigation, and then putting in the effort to lean one way or the other and say, oh, this one's not very supportive. Let's take that out. Ah, this one, I'm leaning against something that's really wholesome. Let's cultivate that. And so that's where the whole of the Eightfold Path comes in, but particularly looking at the supporting factors, that those qualities. This was the sutta I kind of wanted to spend a little bit more time on, with this sense of contentment and ease. So the retreat time I recently had at Cloud Mountain, Jason Bartlett was talking about settling as yeah, that was the word he was using, settle, as a way of approaching samadhi, of samadifying, to make that a verb. This action of settling, that's also a being of settling, that's a quality of settling. And I was talking with him, and I said, well, I was also looking at, am I settling? Like, am I settling for something? And you can hear the tone of that when we use that sentence most of the time. Are you settling for something? Are you, and we can take that actually, and I think appropriately, as a good question, that are we settling for something that's not so wholesome? Are we settling for something that's not the end goal? So we can use it in that way. But then he also, we reframed it. Are we settling for the reality of what is here right now? Are we content? So I came out of that retreat, and I had some medical appointments already scheduled, and they'd been like, well, do you want to wait 5 weeks to really do these I'm like, yes, I'm taking 5 weeks off to go be with what is, rather than just get more test results. So I had an MRI the Monday after coming back on Thursday, so just a handful of days later. And it was a 40-minute MRI. I don't know if anyone else here has had one before. They're loud. Your body is just pushed into a tube, and then boom, 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 boom. You've got these waves hitting the body, and it makes images, and you have to lie very still. And most people would call that dukkha, right? You're looking forward to the images, but the actual experience, and past MRIs, I would say, kind of neutral for me, but I could see how many people would experience it at dukkha. And in this case, he's like, well, we're going to just do the 2 MRIs back to back. So you're going to be in there for 40 minutes rather than just 20. But I'll check on you regularly. And, what music do you want? Oh, I don't want any music. I'll just put the earplugs in. And he says, well, I'll still check on you. And he didn't check on me for 30 minutes. 30 minutes. And he said, well, there's only 10 minutes left. You doing okay? Yep. And he pulled me out and he said, you were so still. And that was, to me, the MRI was sukha. I was just as relaxed could be. I could feel, I had the mindfulness, I could feel the warmth where the imaging was happening as it went down. I could feel the energy going out my feet, the vibrations, just present with a situation that not considered terribly pleasant. And I actually found the pleasantness in the experience. And so I think a lot of times, this, can I settle, can also be, can I be okay with things as they are? Now, that doesn't mean I say, oh, I want my neck or my back to continue in this manner. I'm not going to get an MRI. I'm just going to be fine. That might be a perfect path for some people, but I'm also doing the intelligent things to get more information in my case. And so we can take the steps, that's the right effort, to say, what is it that I would like to achieve here? But in this moment, and particularly in this meditation, can I settle? Can I be okay with? I've had good meditation in noisy parks because I could settle and be okay with the truck going by and the horn and the fumes and the, just okay. Right now, it's like this. I have a phrase I ask myself a lot. Can this be okay? Can this be okay? And if I have the capacity to ask the question, we already know there's enough okay in this. I'm not so completely out of it or lost or in dukkha so far in my mind. If I can ask the question, can this be okay? Oh, in this moment, can I breathe and settle and still and steady enough that the qualities are, I'm satisfied with this as it is. And I think that's the opening that helps us both in our meditation and in our interactions in the world. And so where does this come about? Now, what is the thing we get to cultivate? So I've got a couple of small suttas here, and then I'm going to open it up and we can, because I think this is just such a rich, wonderful topic. Short suttas, but with a lot of practice that could go with them. Okay, so I'm looking at Anguttara Nikaya 1.30, and I'm just using directly Bhikkhu Bhante Sujato's translation here. Mendicants, I do not see a single thing that when it is developed and cultivated brings such happiness as the mind. A developed and cultivated mind brings happiness. And I think that's what's happening when we have the capacity to take the retreat, when we go to the cushion once or twice a day, when we're cultivating the mind, when we go out into the world and we remember, okay, I'm mindful, the sati is here, the sampajana, the clear seeing, the clear knowing, when I've got the Brahma Viharas as my basic being as I engage, then what I'm cultivating and creating is this open space in the mind that can be with things as they are and then respond. Our ability to respond is our responsibility. That's how I like to look at responsibility. And that ability to respond comes out of this developing and cultivating the mind. And the cultivation I am learning really comes from a sukha approach. that well-being cascade, that going from enough confidence, faith, sada, enough of that to have enough of an uplift, a gladdening that allows me to go through till I'm sitting in the sukha. And from the sukha, then the settling can happen. So that to me is a path for this development and cultivation that brings happiness, because the mind is pure and bright. We might look next week at the different factors that really bring that mind together and into a space of contentment. Not the kind of contentment as, well, I'll settle for this, but the kind of contentment that says, yeah, I can settle in this, even this, I can settle. And the other one is the Dhammapada 290. I'm reading Acharya Buddha Rakita's translation here. If by renouncing a lesser happiness, one may realize a greater happiness, let the wise man renounce the lesser, having regard for the greater. I think that's part of the training of the mind too, having a regard for these things that are liberating, the greater path. So leaving some space here, how is this sense of that path may be happy, and it could be cultivated that way, and it might have good impact? How does that land for you? And have you had any experiences of that, or questions, or that can't be right, or counter experiences, if you wish?
Hello.
Yes, please.
I I have a Sukha experience that I can relate that was actually on the retreat at Cloud Mountain that I met you on. And it was like the one major experience of the retreat, actually. But I was having a very difficult retreat. Jason's whole shtick is calculated to enrage me. So I was like going through a lot of that. But toward the end of the retreat, I was sitting in the hall, and the other Aya, Junho, I can't, I'm terrible with Polly. But she came in and she sat down and she was just sitting there, and something about her posture was so natural, and she's smiling, and there was just not a very rigid, just this, it's very difficult to describe, but the gesture, the posture that she had was so incredibly easeful, and the smile on her face was so natural that just like it just all just hit me very deeply, like, oh, that is it, that's the path. Whatever I need, whatever chess pieces I need to move on the board to get there, that's what we got to do. And it really just tears and all that, and then that was the experience, like a real insight into Sukha. So I just want to share that.
Yes, that is beautiful. That brings sukha to my heart too. And that quality is not something most of us come into just out of practice, because we've actually taken a very unnatural path most of our lives, most of us. I can't speak the entire population. But I like that you used the word natural and easeful, because those are the qualities that I'm finding are really bringing to a happiness that allows for the liberation to unfold. I mean, I spent quite a lot of time, like, not quite in the view, but that, the posture that's, oh, here I am meditating. I wouldn't say that is very inspiring, except in the sense of, oh, that person's made it through boot camp or something. And I definitely, came to some of the Theravada practices saying, wow, this is the hardcore, And yes, but someone pointed out that I think it was Ayasuvijana pointed out they were with Ajahn Pasano and Ajahn Amaro and a bunch of other senior monastics. It was, I think, some celebration around Ajahn Chah's death anniversary. And she says, and they were so happy together. They were they were remembering all of these goodnesses and times of teaching. And yes, you can think of that being a hardcore practice, but really what breaks it open is this capacity to sit in this naturalness and ease. And that I think is really where we're getting at Sukha. Um, and of course, you have to have that sense of right effort of, go left, go right. Which ditch are you falling into? So it's not that ease is sloppy. I think you were describing a posture that was upright yet settled. Is that right, Scott?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And make it is so much more sustainable.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can sit longer. I have the willingness to go deeper because there is this happy capacity to be with rather than early in practice, I would get the high, the piti, the joy, but it would almost be like this burning joy. Um, like I got my fix. And that's not the forward leading part. It has to soften into something that's sustainable. Others, dukkha, sukha, practice, contentment. Do any of these words touch your experience? Is that a hand, Susan? Or not just a wiping? Okay.
Okay. Good to see you,
Yeah.
Aya, Dianika. Um, Thank you for this, the teaching, and I I just was thinking, the um, discontentment is this discontentment, the dukkha is never ending. It's always up and down. It's always this constant, getting, this circus or wheel, this Ferris wheel. And this is how we live. I mean, this is the most like it, we don't see it, how it works, like how it's always get discontent, maybe it's just jacking us around constantly. But
Mhm.
the other one, the contentment, this path, which is kind of unworldly, it's not in that path. It actually provides stability that isn't really, it's not, it's totally different. It's like totally not, you can't even compare
Right.
the stability it's not, there's nothing to fear in it because the other world, the self, which is all about the self identity and feeding this thing that we think is has to be, constantly taken care of in a way that isn't true. Actually, it's not true. We actually don't have to do that. We actually can be free of that merry-go-round or that whole thing. And it's hard to imagine, it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that how can we do that? It takes a lot of training to come yeah, gradually to see, wow, it is actually possible. And it's not like you're going to kill yourself. It's not
Right.
like you're abandoning, like taking care of it. There's a middle in there. Yeah, anyway, it's quite profound. Thank you that you you went, yeah, I understood the teaching. Thank you.
Mm. Yes, and the
Very well.
imagery that you're using is wonderful. The Ferris wheel, or the gerbil wheel, we're the ones, making that wheel keep going around because we're running in it and we're running in it and running in it and we're, and occasionally if the gerbil, you actually see the gerbil gets to the top, well, it kind of flips back down and around. Um, I wasn't, as a teen, I wasn't, wanting to go on the Ferris wheel. I wanted to go on the tilt-a-whirl and the, the real give me some velocity and, um, and I thought that was fun. I mean, it was fun. It was fun in that way. And yet, is there stability in that? It's a question. I was talking with might have been a physician's assistant. I'm not sure what her position was yesterday. And she was talking about chasing the adrenaline high. Her back injury had come from a um, series of accidents on horses with barrel racing and rodeo. And, and she said, I was chasing the adrenaline high. And so many of us, that's what we've been taught is chase the adrenaline high now. And when it starts to fade off, hopefully you've got enough money and resources to go chase the next adrenaline high. And it's only when you start to see, the unsteadiness in not only the pursuit, but in that quality of pleasure too. As you were saying, Susan, it's just not even comparable to the kind of pleasure that's possible when you've got that settling steadiness and the stability of the practice and of that quality of mind where you're seeing clearly. I don't, well, I mean, as a monastic, I'm not going to go on tilt-a-whirls anyway. Back injury, I'm not going to go on tilt-a-whirls anyway. Uh, but I don't have the attraction to it now because I'm beginning to really see the pleasure of stability in practice, that steadiness, that continued clear seeing, even the moments where I do an act in the world and I didn't quite meet the person I was talking to, and I said something and it landed funny, and they gave me the reply, and what would have happened before was be that flush and the ego, and I'm so embarrassed and I screwed up, and now there's this quality of, oh, okay, sweetheart, there we go again. Yep, yep, okay. And so even in the midst of, like, I need to redirect, I need to try and build a skill again, there can be this quality of, in the understanding and seeing clearly, it is not completely unpleasant to be in this space and situation. And you can't even imagine that when you're on the tilt-a-whirl or the gerbil wheel.
Hmm.
Is that, am I am I adding to what you were saying in a right way?
Yeah, that really, yeah, because it's not a flat line. None of it, there's no flat line in existence. Otherwise, yeah, we're still existing. So we have to go, like you're pointing out, the nuances of existence. Yeah, it's not like we uh, can just, flatline out of any of it. It still is there to exist. Existence has to face whatever, yeah, so there's a way to exist uh and not be discontent,
Yep.
not be feeding, not living in discontentment, and there's not enough unwholeness and running after things
Mhm.
to oh wow, I'm content for a little while, but it's never lasting.
Yeah.
There's no stability in any of the, unless we train our mind. Yeah, like, but thank you for those little tips of, yeah, those are the testing, the practice. Yeah, thank you. And another thought I had was while you were in the teaching was how I think often people I've heard say it's almost like it's easy to think this stuff is after we die, but it really is talking about here. And
Yeah.
it takes a real shift, like maybe from the Christian, or some of it is talking about after death, but a lot of it is actually in this world existing. And I think that takes your mind, that blows your mind to try to, to apply it to existing is
Yeah.
powerful. Anyway, thank you.
Yep. Yep. When you can get in the MRI or have the ego blow or, and those things, and still the quality within is steady, open, spacious, meeting, and contented. It's a huge shift. And I think it makes us much more resourced to actually do good, be well in the world. We maybe have time for one more comment, and then we'll go off of we'll pay respects to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha if you wish, and then we'll open up for continuing this conversation offline, so not on recording, or any other questions that are open. But is there any last comment or from anyone who wishes?
Yeah, I got to start referring to myself as sweetheart.
Is-
That would change a lot.
I will say that it's the reason I chose sweetheart was because it started with the same letter of what I was calling myself before,
Oh,
stupid.
yep, yep,
And with this kind of motion, oh,
yep,
ah.
yep.
And so I somatically and linguistically changed it to sweetheart.
That's beautiful.
And a lot of times I'd just be catching it at, and if you try it, if you somatically try that, pointing at yourself and then switching it to a kind on your cheek and feel what it does in your body.
Mhm,
And then try the word stupid, sweetheart.
mhm.
The teacher that I learned the technique from was Mark Nunberg, and he called himself Honey. So
All right.
you can find whichever one. Others use dear or,
Mhm.
sweetie. And other people are like, that is so sickening, no way.
Yeah.
So you have to find the one that works for you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, let's, if you wish, you can join me in paying homage to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, and then we'll turn the recording off. And for those who are here, open up. My brain is not pulling the poly up. To the Blessed One, pay homage. To the teaching, I pay homage. To the Sangha, I pay homage. Sometimes it's like that. All right, so I'll turn the recording off and then open up for those who are here.